You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello everyone, thanks for being here today. I am Kirk Mona, and I am joined today by Rachel Ginza and Victoria Thompson. We are all professional naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode. Rachel's with me here this week. How you doing, Rachel?
Woo-hoo! I'm doing all right. I'm gearing up for summer.
Yeah, no doubt. We're getting in the thick of it now.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel, let's talk about 1988 for a minute.
All right. I don't know how much you want me to contribute to this discussion about 1988. I was not alive then.
You were not alive. That's correct.
Kirk, my parents weren't even together at that point.
Yeah, that makes me feel old. Okay, yeah.
Anytime, Kirk. That's what I'm here for.
Yep, that's why you're here. So I can tell you 1988 was a pretty awesome year.
Yeah.
There were some good films that came out that year. And believe me, this has something to do with what I'm talking about. But I decided to look up a list of some of the top grossing films from that year because I was kind of curious. And when I saw this list, my jaw dropped. I was like, these were all in the same year. I'm kind of curious how many of these you've heard of. I can tell you that if you were alive at the time, like you definitely have heard of every single one of these movies. So a little quiz for people at home too. I'm curious how many of these you've heard of, okay?
I'm ready.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Absolutely, yes.
Coming to America?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Good Morning Vietnam?
Yep.
Big?
Yep. These are all
Crocodile
Tom Hanks
Dundee
movies.
2?
I've heard of it, yes.
Three Men and a Baby? A great Christmas film, Die Hard.
Oh, beautiful. I've seen that, yeah.
Cocktail? Beetlejuice?
Ooh, I saw that.
A Fish Called Wanda, Willow, Twins, The Great Outdoors, The Land Before Time, Child's Play, the movie that gave us Chucky, Thrill Mama from the Train, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, Big Top Pee-wee, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Mystic Pizza, Dirty Dancing, Beaches. Like these were all pretty big movies, and they all came out in the same year, which that's wild. That's astounding. That was an impressive year for cinema. It gives us an idea of how like times have changed. Obviously, a lot of energy is going towards streaming now instead of like movie theaters. So these were all like big movies that all came out in the same year, which kind of blows my mind. That's an impressive list. But there's one movie I did not mention on that list. It came in number 81 on the list of top grossing films from that year. By the way, the list is 200 films that were on this list from 1988 alone. I think that was just the top 200. The movie that was not mentioned in my list was the movie They Live. Are you familiar with this film, Rachel? They Live.
Sounds like a horror
Clearly
movie,
not.
Kirk. No, I have not.
It is, kind of a horror movie, I guess. It's pretty amazing. This film was like a sort of, I guess, a campy horror film that starred professional wrestler turned actor Roddy Piper, also known as Roddy Piper.
So Brett has absolutely seen this movie.
Oh, yes. Our friend of the show, Brett, who's a big wrestling fan, he knows this film well. So the premise of this film, just to fill you in, and then you should go watch it, is that this average Joe guy accidentally finds like a pair of sunglasses. And when he puts them on, he can see that some people in our population are not humans at all. They're actually weird looking aliens. Oh. And there's also a thing where like billboards and newspapers and everything you look at actually just looks blank white and just has subliminal messages on them, single words like the word obey. And that's where some of the stuff like obey comes from. There's like an obey clothing line and stuff now you might have seen. That's kind of where I think some of this is in reference to. So it was like a big sort of like cult classic kind of film. And I was thinking of this film when I heard about this week's story I want to tell you about. Like, it would be pretty shocking to like pick up those sunglasses and suddenly see people differently. But imagine like if you did, right? Or imagine if, not even a sunglass thing, imagine if you just woke up one day And when you looked at people, their faces were wrong. They were distorted. They were bizarre, and quite possibly even looked demonic.
Oh.
In ye olden days, you might assume you were surrounded by demons when you woke up, and that'd be pretty disturbing. In modern times, maybe people might think that it looks like aliens or something like that, like in the film.
Yeah.
And
or maybe you forgot your glasses that day.
Yeah, no, I mean, not blurry. Like everything would look sharp, just distorted. Okay.
Huh. Okay.
Yeah. So I guess whatever your interpretation might be, it'd be a pretty disturbing phenomenon, right? Well, dear
I wouldn't
listener,
want to live that.
dear listener, this is not some hypothetical scenario.
Kirk, no.
This is reality.
Kirk, no.
Yeah. Now, it is hard to say how many people on Earth suffer from this condition. There are at least 81 confirmed reported cases, but there's likely more that have just not been recorded by science, right? There's not everybody has access to doctors, and there's probably things
or
that
even
happen.
necessarily knows what is happening.
Exactly. Or things that happened long, long ago before we really had proper medical science and whatnot. So today I'm talking about...
Sounds rare, but at the same time, this is going to be a new fear. Great. Love that. Okay.
Oh, no. Well, today I'm talking about a medical condition called PMO. Now, look, I'm going to keep calling it PMO because I really don't want to keep having to say the full name of this disease. But I'm going to do it just this once. It's a 21-letter, basically Greek word. So here goes.
Good luck. We don't have Victoria.
Thank you.
We're not going to do well.
Yeah, and she's good with the medical stuff. So here we go. Prosopometamorphopsia. That's what it stands for. I'm just going to call it PMA. What that name?
Nope, you're not going to call it PMA. You're going to call it PMO.
Yeah, PMA is very different, folks. PMO. What those words basically break down to in Greek is changes in perception of the face, is what it means. So it's a very accurate, if not hard to say name. People who suffer from this condition, in the past, were often thought to suffer from some sort of psychological condition, and doctors tried to treat it with antipsychotics, and that just doesn't really work because this is not a psychological disorder. PMO is fundamentally a problem with the visual system of humans.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and so we often forget that we don't directly see the world, right? Everything you see is interpreted by the brain. And it's the big reason why eyewitness testimony is usually garbage. People are usually very confident in what they saw, but it's, people are actually terrible at really actually seeing what is happening. Our final vision of the world is actually shaped by filters in our brain that interpret the visual data that has been sent to it. And there's all kinds of optical illusions that we're all familiar with. And all the different optical illusions work because they play with the limitations of our visual system. I mean, I think just from a couple years ago, the whole, is the dress blue and black or gold and whatever.
Blue and black and
that sort of broke everyone's brain.
White?
Yeah, I think so. So it was and that broke everyone's brain because it was something that played around with the limitations of our visual system. And in the case with PMO, what happens is that faces become distorted. And this actually points to a really interesting fact. It isn't people's bodies that look distorted. It's not their hands or their feet or anything else. It's just the face. And I think this really underlines how important perception of faces is to humans. Because if only that's what's affected, then you go, well, that must be a special part of our brain that is trying to decipher what's going on with people's faces, right? We literally have these special systems in the brain that are there to help us recognize faces.
Which would make sense because that's primarily how humans communicate with each other is through facial, like recognition and how we move.
Yeah, and it's how we tell people apart. It's how you know that that's your mom or your dad or your spouse or your family or someone who's a total, jerk. That's how we know what's what is by looking at faces, right? Or even to interpret emotions. A lot of our human communication isn't even verbal; it's nonverbal, and a lot of nonverbal communication is through the face. So it's not surprising that our brains would have some pretty special systems to deal with this. And so when these systems break down and don't work, you can end up with diseases where people either can't recognize faces, which is one sort of disease, or you can get this one where you can recognize people, but they look distorted. And that's what's going on. People with PMO can recognize faces, but their faces just look wrong. And of course, we can't see what they're seeing, right? So we have to just go based on their descriptions and people telling us what it looks like.
Which
and
is terrible.
what's interesting is depending on who you talk to, you get different answers. So it's not a consistent thing. Some faces can look droopy or kind of melty. Features can be enlarged. So things like the nose might appear distorted and like moved off to one side. One common sort of factor, though, when I was reading a lot of the different descriptions, was that the eyes often appear enlarged, like way too big, and maybe even distorted as well, which has got to look just absolutely bonkers.
That sounds. My gosh!
It's fascinating because it points to this idea that if the eyes look enlarged in almost all of these cases, that may mean that the eyes are something that our visual system pays extra special attention to. And so it's why they look larger. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So, and when we think about someone, often you're making eye contact with them. You're not like watching someone's ears while they're talking, or you're often looking at their eyes. And that's part of how we communicate. So being able to see someone's eyes and being able to pick out all these little details of, are they squinting? Are they looking off to the side or something? Those are important things. So again, that's being distorted in this. But like I said, everything we know about the faces, what the faces look like to these folks, is based on their verbal descriptions. Because one of the weird things is you can't show them a picture and go, oh, you mean like this? Because photos also appear distorted. So even if you had an accurate description, an accurate picture of what they were actually seeing, when you show it to them, it would probably look even more distorted. And they go, no, that's not what I'm talking about, because the photo would also be distorted. Isn't that crazy?
That's wild. Yeah.
Yeah. And people's descriptions, again, as opposed to specific sort of big picture, they range from demonic to distorted to even dragon-like. People saying like people get like snouts and scaly looking skin and literally look like a talking dragon person.
That's kind of cool.
Which is kind of cool, but would be terrifying.
Oh, absolutely horrifying, but like kind of cool.
Well, PMO was recently in the news due to a study that came out a few months ago in the journal Lancet. There was a 58-year-old man who was found to have PMO, but weirdly, while faces look strange to him in person, if you showed him a photo of that same person, the photo would look totally normal. So it was only like three-dimensional faces actually in front of him that were distorted. And the researchers were like, oh, this gives us an amazing opportunity.
We need to know.
They were able to have a person in front of him and have a digital photo of that person on a computer, and then digitally tweak those photos on the computer until they looked exactly like the actual person he was looking at. And he could compare them and go, no, the nose is a little longer, ears move back here, and actually direct somebody to change the image on the screen to match what he was seeing in real time.
That's cool.
Is really, really neat. And so we actually, for the very first time, have what we believe is a very accurate picture of at least what one person with PMO sees. And obviously this is not a visual medium, so I can't show them to you, but we'll try to link to it. The photos are online. You can see these photos. There's one of a man and one of a woman. Yeah, I'll try to
put one on our Instagram and social media stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and what you're going to see is that, at least to me, for this guy, what this guy was seeing are elves.
Dude.
Like big-eyed elves, like large eyes that kind of were like very, very almond-shaped, like becoming very like pulled back. Like someone was grabbing the corner of the eye and kind of pulling it back toward the ears. And then like the tips of the ears become very like pulled out and pointy, like an elf. And when you just see these pictures, I was like, oh my gosh, it's an elf. He sees elves everywhere, which is very fascinating.
That is wild, yeah.
Yeah, like we still don't understand exactly what is happening with PMO or exactly why it happens, but we do know that it's often associated with people who have epilepsy, or people that once they do a brain scan, when they report this, they often find lesions in the part of the brain that have to do with visual systems. So you're like, okay, there are lesions in the brain that are causing a malfunction. We don't totally understand, I guess, why it creates the distortions it does, but the fact that there's lesions in that part of the brain, it's like, okay, well, that's what's causing it, right? Even if we don't know the exact mechanism for why it appears the way it does. And I think, conditions like this are pretty fascinating because when things go wrong, it can give us an amazing insight into the workings of our perceptual systems. And that's a really valuable thing in science. Like I mentioned that book a couple weeks back that was about called Freaks of Nature, where it looked at when things go wrong. This is more like physical things about that. It actually teaches us about how bodies develop and whatnot. And so actually we've learned a lot, again, by when things go wrong. It kind of shows us the limits of how systems work and how they function. So pretty interesting. I guess this story also makes me wonder how many of our fantasy stories we have from the past were maybe created by people who had PMO, maybe people who saw things that no one else did, and they did their best to cope with it through stories and passing on, I saw this person, they looked this way, and that's what it was. And it may have been a perfectly, an ordinary person, but their perception of it, was somehow changed, which I think is fascinating because some of the things people see, like things that look like demons, things that look like aliens, things that look like dragon lizard people, things that look like elves, those are all things we have in mythology from around the world. So, intriguing, right? I find that very interesting.
I have questions.
Right. And unfortunately, we'll probably never have answers. That's just how it goes. So my main source this week was The Lancet, the journal article that came out. This was in the March 2024 issue, so pretty recently. It was called Visualizing Facial Distortions in PMO, although they spelled out the entire 21-letter word there. And there was also a good story in Science Daily and some background information actually on Wikipedia. So those are my sources. I thought people would find that pretty fascinating. We are going to take a break, and when we get back, we'll have a story from Rachel.
I'm so sorry. All right, welcome back, everyone. So,
I'm a little worried. You apologized before you even began.
Yeah. Well, it's not like especially gross, but some people might not really enjoy this particular
Rachel, it's
topic.
called Strange by Nature. People at this point know what they signed up for. They have subscribed. If you haven't, what are you doing? Click that subscribe button. But
Please do.
They know what they're in for at this point. That's why they're here. So
That's
I think
true.
they'd be disappointed
That's
if it wasn't a little gross and weird. So
Yeah.
bring it on. What do you got?
All right. So it's not as bad as what you had last week, but I am going to be
That was
talking about a
tough.
particular. That was pretty tough. I am talking about a parasite this week.
Oh, good.
We love that, right?
Sure do.
So
as long as it's
for
not
all
in
of
me.
us in the northern hemisphere, we are now well into tick season.
Oh, yeah, we are.
Mm-hmm. And this
I
year
actually,
in particular,
I saw a tick. I was bird
Oh.
banding today, and I
Oh,
found
no.
a tick on a bird's face.
I hate that.
I'd never seen that before. It was awful.
Did you remove
Just
the tick?
I was not able to remove it. It will have to drop off on its own.
Wow.
I also didn't want to damage the bird's skin is very thin, and so if I pulled on their facial skin, it could tear, and then their blood does not clot particularly well, and so it could have been dangerous to the bird. So I did end up leaving it on.
Well, that's horrifying. Thanks,
Yep.
Kirk.
You're welcome.
So, especially with climate change and how mild the winter was in the northern hemisphere, I think we can all agree it was a relatively mild winter.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bad tick season.
That's true. Oh, that's
Yeah.
true. We can't have nice things without paying a price.
Yeah. So because we had such a mild winter, it allows ticks to be able to not necessarily die off as much, like their eggs and everything, and they're able to last longer, not as many like freeze out or anything like that. So because of that, there's going to be more ticks this season. So sorry. So you got to be on the lookout because it's going to be a bad tick season. So First things first, before I get into this, PSA, if you're prone to go outside, which I suspect many of our listeners are, here's a few general tips. Okay. If you are going anywhere where there's grass or forested edges or anything like that, or like prairie, especially taller grasses, but it can be in yards as well, I recommend that you wear long, light-colored pants, shoes and socks. Hiking boots or regular tennis shoes work great. You want to wear longer socks, which I know some folks do not like. But you want to cover the end of your pant with your socks, so you look like an absolute nerd. But you're going to be a nerd that doesn't get ticks on your skin. So
now, I personally almost always go directly opposite of this advice.
I mean, same, Kirk. I'm giving this advice. These are like, this is a great piece of advice that I've received, and I think it's a really good, like, if I'm going to like go through and traipse through a prairie,
do as you say,
the amount of times that I'm in like shorts and everything, so much. I wear like Chacos and like not Crocs. I wear Chacos in the summer. Just, I get it. I really, really, truly do.
Here's my reasoning on this. If you wear long socks and you tuck your pants in, that is not going to magically keep ticks off you.
No,
they're
not.
They're going to land on your pants. They're going to crawl up as they're wont to do. They're going to get to your waistband where you have a nice tucked in shirt. They're going to crawl up your shirt, and they're going to end up, the first skin they find is your hairline, and they're going to crawl in your hair where you're going to find them maybe days later stuck to your scalp. What I have found is that when I am wearing shorts in the summertime, now I'm a person who does not shave my legs. I have hairy legs. I can feel ticks crawling on my legs almost instantly when they get on me. So like I will, and maybe it's because I think it might be because they're possibly like hitting the hairs and irritating, moving the hairs in my leg.
As someone who has had shaved legs and not shaved legs and experienced ticks in both settings, I can concur that I feel them more when I have hairy legs than I have when I have shaved legs. Yeah.
So that was kind of my theory. So thank you for, saying I'm right. Like I can feel that, and like ticks don't last more than like a few seconds on me, because I'm like, oh, I got a tick, and I look down and there it is, and boom, I pull it up, just flick it off and it's gone. So like, I'm kind of a big proponent of the shorts thing. I will say though, that kind of only applies for wood ticks and not like deer ticks, which are so tiny you're not going to feel them either way.
Right. So what it also comes down to for this PSA, like if you do that, or if you just have like hiking boots on and some socks and stuff, you can spray your boots and your shoes down with a really good like deep woods bug spray. I highly recommend those that have DEET in them. I know there's a lot of conflict and things. You don't want chemicals and things. Spray it on your shoes. It's going to prevent it's really, really good at preventing ticks and things from crawling on your shoes, because odds are they're going to crawl up on your shoes in the first place.
Yep.
If you are like me and Kirk and you ignore our first part of advice, wearing long pants and tuck the ends of your pants into your socks, if you're like us,
we're too cool for school.
We're too cool. Then actually do a tick check every day. If you're going to be out in the grass in the lawn, if you're going to be anywhere where ticks are present, which generally is outside, do a tick check. It takes about 24 hours for a tick to attach to a favored spot. They really enjoy, they look for sheltered spaces that are covered, warm, and somewhat moist.
Lovely. So, there's that word.
So this means that you should be, as Allie Ward would say and has said, you check your crevices, check your pits, check your groin, check your hairline behind your ears, and do a nice little shake through your hair. Check behind your knees, between your toes. All those spaces are great, lovely spots. Check your waistline, like Kirk was saying. Right where if you don't have a tucked, say you do wear long light colored pants and you tuck your ends in, but you don't have a tucked in shirt, they're going to go for that waistband because it's nice, protected, sheltered, and like, ooh, look at that belly button. Yep. So make sure that you check yourself, check your crevices.
Before you
even better,
yourself.
Exactly. Even better, take a shower. Take a nice shower.
I thought I said even better, have someone check for you.
I mean, that could be fun. No, it is good to be able to have if you can have someone check like spaces that you can't see. But honestly, take a shower. At the end of the day,
everyone should be showering. Get in the shower, you guys. Come on.
Yeah, go take a shower. You're probably dirty anyway. You're probably covered in bug spray and sunscreen and all of those things to help protect yourself.
Yep.
Go take a shower. That will help. That'll help you check all your crevices and everything, and it will prevent the tick from getting anywhere. The clothes that you are wearing, make sure that you can stick them in the dryer for a little bit on high heat, and that'll kill the tick as well. So that way the tick doesn't drop off your clothes. And look for a host somewhere else in your house, which is bad times. Overall, just like be wary. Make sure if you're going to spend time outside, do the checks themselves. Because it takes 24 hours for ticks to attach. And then after that, it can be more of an issue, which
people get so freaked out by ticks. Mm-hmm. And they're like, kids every week are like, are there ticks in these woods? Oh my God. And they're freaking out. And I'm like, well, yeah. And they start screaming and stuff. And I'm like, hold on. Are you guys afraid of mosquitoes? Nah, no. And I'm like, the mosquitoes will bite you instantly the second they land on you. The ticks, they get 24 hours before they bite you. You got plenty of time just to brush them off. Like, It's not that big a deal.
No.
But Rachel, why are they sucking our blood in the first place?
That's a great question. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Now that we've gone through our little PSA, ticks, while scary, do take time, and you have the ability to be able to get rid of them beforehand. If you find a tick, by the way, my favorite method, which was done by a friend of ours, she takes a piece of tape. If she has it nearby, she'll stick it on the tape and just smush it that way. Just put it between the pieces of tape. I love that method. It's my favorite. Anyway, just get rid of
suffocation method, yeah. That's once you get it off you, by the way. Don't just put the tape on your skin. Yeah, that's once you get it off you. Yeah.
Anyway, so today I'm actually talking in specific the American dog tick or the wood tick, which you actually referenced earlier. So nice job,
The wood tick, yes. That's the one that I find all the time.
Yeah, and that's one that I find all the time too. Like there's a variety of species of ticks throughout the world, and they go after a variety of creatures. As you found one on a bird just recently.
Yeah.
There's the deer tick, and they do transmit diseases, which is part of the reason why people are so freaked out by it. Now, deer ticks are known to transmit Lyme's disease, which I'm sure we'll cover at some other point in the show. I'm talking about wood ticks.
Hold on. No, they don't, Rachel. I have to be a pedant.
Ooh.
They transmit Lyme disease.
I'm so sorry. Yes, they transmit Lyme disease. You're correct.
Sorry, I'm a pedant. I gotta say it.
We know. We know.
I can't
it's all
stop.
Good. You're the reason why I say Canada geese, by the way.
Oh, good. Yeah, stop saying Canadian geese. Unless they're from Canada, then they'd be Canadian Canada geese.
Right.
As opposed to an American Canada goose. Very confusing.
Which is very different, probably louder. So the wood tick in particular, I'm going to try the Latin.
Good.
It is, I know, Derma centaur variabilis is the relatively easy, an American dog tick or a wood tick. Now, this is a small tick that is actually about twice the size of a deer tick. They're brown in color. An adult has 8 legs. You can identify a male or a female of a dog tick or a wood tick based on the striping. Now, that particular striping is actually not necessarily striping. It's part of the body of a tick. So this is a hard-bodied tick. They have, that means that they have a hard outer body. They're brown. They have 8 legs. Females have this light-colored, it looks like a necklace,
Yep.
which is actually a part of their body. So it's a particular part called a scula.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Which you can tell because the reason why we can tell the difference, because the males have more of like suspender looking things that whitish color goes all the way down. That's because generally speaking, females are going to be much larger than males. But in addition to the females being larger than males, it's actually because the scula extends all the way to the end of the body of the tick, rather than just being a smaller part that looks like a necklace on the female. Now, these are the adults.
So on the males, basically, it's just extending all the way to the end, and that necklace sort of gets stretched out all the way to the end, whereas it doesn't on the female. Okay.
Exactly.
Interesting. This is actually one of my favorite things about ticks. Like when you find them, kids, especially if you work with kids or you have kids, and they get freaked out because there's a tick. One of the things I'll do is they'll go, "Oh, I have a tick," and the first thing I'll say is, "Oh, cool. Is it a boy or a girl?" And they're like, "Wait, what?" And I'll take it and I'll put it in my hand. They'll watch it crawl around and see that it's, smaller than a ladybug. It's just this little harmless thing. And I go, "Look," and I'll teach them about the male versus female. And all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, I want to find one and see if it's a boy or a girl," And it sort of takes a lot of the scariness out of it for some reason. So it's a really neat little trick when you're working with kids.
Oh, yeah. Also, I misspoke. It's actually a scutum, which is kind of a fun. It's scutum.
Oh, sure. Scutum, yeah.
So a scutum. It looks like a little tiny scale more than anything else. So that being said, why are they attaching to us? So dog ticks in general are pretty interesting in the fact that, like all ticks, they have a life cycle that they go through. They start off as they're an adult. A female will lay eggs on the ground. They'll go through. They need multiple hosts in order to succeed. In deer ticks or in wood ticks, they need 3 hosts. So the eggs will be, they'll hatch and they'll go and feed on a small mammal. Now the larvae that come out of the eggs are 6 legs. They look relatively similar. They definitely look tick-like, but they have 6 legs rather than 8.
Interesting. Okay.
And they will feed on small mammals, drop back to the ground, back to where there's grass and everything, find another small mammal, feed, because once they have dropped off and they have molted, they will molt after they got that blood meal. Because in order
starting to remind me of the horrible story I told last week.
Yep, that's kind of what it was like. Oh, rough. So they will drop off after molting, get another pair of legs. So now they have 8 legs. Now they're a nymph. Go to another small mammal, take a blood meal off of that mammal, drop to the ground, molt, become an adult, find a larger mammal, hopefully find another tick of the opposite sex, mate on the mammal, drop off to the ground. Males will die after mating. Females will develop eggs, go lay eggs, and then die. And then it starts all over.
Rinse and repeat, yeah.
Rinse and repeat.
Ooh.
Now, right? So that's part of their life cycle. They have to, in order to move forward, they have to be able to take that blood meal. And I say that
3 animals. That's astounding.
3 animals. It's a lot, especially since the wood tick actually prefers taking the same host or different, like they prefer taking the same host during all of its life stages. So
interesting. Is that like they get a taste for one and they want to keep on that going for the same one?
I guess so. Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting.
Other tick species are very much opportunists. They'll take whatever they can around them.
Sure.
But these guys prefer, like if they attach to a rabbit when they're larvae, they want to stay on a rabbit for the next 2.
Interesting.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
Their range in general is pretty much if you are east of the Rockies, that's where they are. That's where wood ticks are, which is lovely. They have to take a blood meal. Now, this is something that I didn't love finding out. If a wood tick doesn't find a blood meal, it can last up to 2 years on the ground until it finds something for the blood meal, so it can continue on and molt and keep going. I hate that fact that it can live 2 years on the ground. Even that's why it's so important. We want pretty good winters to help kill off those guys. Have less.
Rachel, hey Rachel, go for a hike, Rachel.
Go for a hike. This is gonna be so lovely. Just have it.
I'm just gonna jump on a leg, go for a little ride here.
It's gonna be so fun. Yeah. Now, I have one other thing that I wanted to touch base about wood ticks. The fact that they are around is really important. They are food for quite a few different species. Like there are animals that eat ticks.
Sure.
They are disease transmitters. Yeah. Because they are taking blood and biting in from one species to another. Horrifying little way. Like they literally make a small cut and then insert a feeding tube into the host.
Something out of a horror film, yeah.
It absolutely. Well, sometimes that feeding tube has barbs on it, so that way they can't be pulled off. And then other species, not necessarily the wood tick, but there are species that like make a substance that's like cement, so they can't be removed. I hate it. Gosh. I hate it.
They're very
so
clever.
much.
I mean, they're amazing creatures.
It really did work well.
Yeah.
If you do find an attached tick, by the way, use tweezers. Make sure to get the head out.
The head, yeah. Don't grab the body because then you'll squeeze all the blood.
Don't grab the body. You want to grab the head.
Yeah.
These are two-part bodied animals. So if you grab the head and pull it out, you're much more likely to get all of it, and you won't have to deal with anything that comes from the head of the tick. And then you want to save it too. It sounds kind of gross, but you want to save it so that way in case you get any sort of symptoms of any sort of diseases or anything, the doctor can test that tick.
I guess that's where that tape comes in handy.
Exactly.
I mean, this is something we've been dealing with for
a long time.
Well, yeah. And actually I was curious. I looked up the etymology of the word tick because I'm a total dork and I find that fascinating. And some will say, oh, it's, from an old word that meant this, and you can kind of watch how it changed. As far as we know, the word tick has always just meant tick. Like it's a crazy old word. Maybe originally kind of came from a word that just meant insect, but like the word tick, is a good chance if you went far back in history and just said tick, people would be like, oh, a tick. They probably might pronounce it differently, but like basically it's like this is probably a super old word, at least sort of coming from the European area. I mean, it's in Dutch, German, English, a lot of French, all even in Italian. It's a little different, but like this probably all comes from like a very old common word that's been around for a super long time, because we've been dealing with ticks kind of ever since there've been people. Probably before there were people, really.
Before there were people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So wood ticks in general too, just so everyone knows, the diseases that they are able to transmit, and the way they transmit is because they take blood meals from different different animals.
Yeah.
If their host has whatever bacteria or disease, if they take a little bit of the blood is a vector for a lot of diseases. What'll happen is some of that blood will be internalized into the tick. They'll move on to the next host, take a little bit, and their saliva will then be able to transfer some of that disease to someone. Now,
Ehrlichia is the big one around here they can get.
Exactly. So the big thing for wood ticks is Rocky Mountain spotted fever, which usually takes about 3 days, 3 days to 2 weeks to appear. So that's something to definitely watch out for ticks. That's especially wood ticks. If you find one on you, that is a really common disease that they are able to transfer from animal to animal. Same with tularemia is another type of disease. Oftentimes you have like chills, swollen lymph nodes, and ulcer at the site of the bite. But that can usually appears between 3 to 5 days. So if you have a tick that is attached, just keep an eye out, keep the tick, make sure, see how it goes. The earlier that a tick is removed from whatever host, it's gonna the earlier you remove a tick from a host, the better, and the less likely you're getting any sort of disease. Especially in order to transfer, it takes anywhere from 3 to 8 hours of feeding.
Yeah, you got some time.
Of being attached. You got some time. So
go take a shower, people. Go take a shower.
Yeah, go take a shower. So I've been thinking about ticks because of the season and because the activity is going to be really high, especially in North America, anywhere from April to even to October. It can be regular tick season here.
Yeah.
So making sure that you're watching and looking for ticks. Don't necessarily freak out as much. See if you have a male or female tick. You can tag us. That would be cool. Wood ticks, you don't really have to worry about Lyme disease.
Nope.
But just keep an eye out, and that'll be great. So a parasite for us for second week in a row. Yay!
Yay.
Yay. All right. My sources this week, I used Wikipedia was really great. The U of M, so the University of Minnesota, also had a really great, University of Minnesota Extension had a great thing on ticks, as did Pet MD and the Mayo Clinic. There's a wide variety of sources out there, but there are some really great ones out there. So that's all I got for you. So sorry.
That's quite enough. I think you've said enough.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I ended last week's show by, telling people to, that there might be something crawling in their bed. Now I feel like everyone's going to go to bed itching and I just realized I'm sort of unconsciously just sort of itching at myself right now. Just like there's something crawling on me. Ugh.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure I had a kid that was in a class of mine yesterday. I think their mom found a tick on them at their hairline today. So.
Yep. It can happen.
Yep. Oh, yeah. So check yourselves. And with that, that's all we got for you this week. So thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all of our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach out to us on social media by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can also check out our website, which is strangebynaturepodcast.com. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.